Trying to not make this look like or feel like a race, but we're going to get right to the point today. I want to talk about the hidden treasures that we have in our life. And I want to talk about it in the kind of in the aspect of recognizing that when we think about how exciting it is to be a treasure hunter. And when you're thinking about being a treasure hunter on the large scale, we think of things like the lost city of gold. And you think about how many movies that are made. We think about ships that are galleons that are loaded up with gold and they sink, and people are hunting for treasure. On the small scale, we think of maybe somebody like a beachcomber with a metal detector, and they're out trying to find something. I think about digging through some garbage that we had an old garbage barrel. I put some out there, and I found a dime. Oh, if there's a dime here, then there's got to be more. I'm thinking about dime in my time. I'll probably think it was worth a lot more in George's time, but that was a long time before that. So it was worth a whole lot. But you get excited about hidden treasures. And you know, we think about all the grand stories of that which has been lost. And the hard work that goes in, the research, you know, you go to archives, you look for the slightest hint that would give you a direction as to how to find this particular hidden treasure. And then you find it before others. You know, the necessity is to find that hidden treasure before others find it, because if you find it first, it's yours. And it's kind of like we have this saying, finders, keepers, losers, weepers, and the like. X marks the spot on all of these things. Well, the Apostle Paul talks about something like this in the book of Colossians. In the book of Colossians, he is telling a church who are having some problems and difficulty within the church. Doctrinally, people are telling them certain things. There's confusion. There's some division here. There were some old things that people were holding on to because they thought that those old things were the things that they treasured. And he's trying to say, I'm going to point you to some new things that are even more valuable. So in the book of Colossians, and I want to read verses 2 through and 3, and he says here, my purpose is that they may be encouraged in heart and united in love, so that they may have the full riches of complete understanding, in order that they may know the mystery of God, namely Christ, in whom are hidden all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge. Now, in and of itself, this doesn't sound like necessarily some great treasure in and of itself. But let's take a look at this and take a look at the roadmap and the treasure and the hope and the joy that we have in seeking these hidden treasures. First of all, let's talk about the treasure of wisdom. And here's what we must understand about the treasure of wisdom. There are two wisdoms in this world. There is a worldly wisdom and there is a godly wisdom. Now, we would not know that except it's written in God's Word. And we're reminded of that. And in this wisdom that we find in the world, and what James tells us here is there is a wisdom from heaven, and there's a wisdom from this earth. The wisdom from this earth is sensual, it's materialistic, all of that. And it would lead you to believe that it is more valuable. And the reason for that, and we ask the question, which one of those pays off in this life? Well, I want to tell you that the wisdom of this world pays off in this life. So give me an example. Matthew 4, the temptation of Jesus. The wisdom that of the world was, look, Jesus, you can turn these stones into bread right now. That's a reward. If you will do this, I will give you all the kingdoms of the world. Now, how long is that going to last? Well, it's not going to last forever. There are immediate rewards. Jesus took the wisdom of the Bible, of what his Father said, and he said, but it is written. Satan tried to twist that around. that same wisdom, quote, worldly wisdom, was applied to Adam and Eve in the garden. Look, you can take of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and immediately you're going to know things that you didn't know before. So, and you get to partake of that immediately. So what is the end result of the different wisdoms? Well, one is temporal and one is everlasting. And one gives you a reward right now in and of itself, that's all. And it appears to be, it's very materialistic, and it appears like you got the advantage, but it's short term, very, very short term. So he says, I want you to understand, the mystery of godly wisdom, because God knows what he's talking about. Now, the problem with godly wisdom, in part, is, I say the problem, and we are the problem, is that in our wisdom, we want everything to kind of fall into place and the like, which comes into the second treasure, understanding. We want to understand and think that we know. And there is a wisdom of knowledge, or the word actually can be translated understanding. And there's the point of understanding what a true treasure is. And also having appreciation for something that in a moment you may not appreciate. So this is August the 4th. It means nothing to you. But for me, it means everything. August 4th. 54 years ago today, my dad died. And I was calling God into question because things looked like they were really improving in our life. He'd been sober for a whole year. We put a rooftop, on our roof. We had done some things and progress. But he had surgery. It appeared that he, back surgery, and supposedly the surgery was successful and all of that. But he died in the hospital. I remember, my mom coming on this particular day about 3:30, it would be 3:30 or an afternoon, saying my dad had a heart attack. That's what he heard. And of course, my question was, well, how is he? And she said, he's dead. And so, I was a bit aggravated, irritated. I couldn't understand what God was doing. So let me give you a little history that doesn't necessarily show up on the surface, because I had this conversation with my sister yesterday. My dad had drank heavily, very, very, very heavily, drunk heavily for years. And so there had to be liver issues. He's only 46, but there has to be with that kind of heavy drinking. He worked for a chemical company back when there weren't mask, gloves, and all of that, and he worked for the chemical company for years, so he had all kinds of contact with chemicals and the like. Therefore, there had to be a great deal of toxicity in his body. Okay. Then we also have the issue here of his being sober for a year. So when's the next time you're going to fall off the wagon? Because the way it worked in his life was 2 weeks sober, 2 weeks drunk, 2 weeks sober, 2 weeks drunk. Get a little ahead, and 2 weeks sober and 1 month drunk. So now, having said that, he had been sober for that period. Now, there is an assumption as well that back surgery is successful. You can pronounce back surgery successful and still have you're only 46, and you got other, I'm just going to go with the opinion that it was successful, but he was never going to be able to do what he was able to do before that, back surgery back then. Then there's all the anxiety within the whole family of how all this works out. So I had a problem because I couldn't understand why God did that. Oh, the other part, and I've told you this story before, that very same day in Pasadena, California, they were signing a letter, and it said, "Congratulations, Steve Smith, you're accepted to college." Now, we lived in basic poverty, so I've been accepted to college. Also with that, his death was the company had a $3,000 insurance policy we had no knowledge of. So paying off bills, but my mom had enough to buy me a plane ticket.
Feeling the blues today or tired of life already? Do you have questions about life or need spiritual advice? The Worldwide Church of God is located in Fairfield, Santa Rosa, and Modesto, California. We welcome everyone to attend our worship services with us every week at the times listed on your screen.